At about 6:30 on the night of the 6th of March 1987, the unthinkable happened to the British car ferry the Herald of Free Enterprise. Having just left the Belgian port of Bruges ZEEBRUGGE for Dover in England, she was only 90 metres from shore when she capsized, leading to the deaths of 193 passengers and crew. The 7-year-old ferry was a roll-on, roll-off craft, which meant it had doors at both the bow and the stern, and it soon became apparent that through oversight and negligence, she had left the harbour with the bow doors still open. Only a minute and a half into the voyage, at a speed of just under 19 knots, water began to pour into the car deck. This caused the ship to list to port before righting herself and then listing again. This time she went right over, ending up half submerged in the shallow water. With the electrical systems flooded, the ship was plunged into darkness, but a nearby dredger saw the lights go out and raised the alarm. Help began arriving within half an hour, but unfortunately the 3 degrees Celsius water meant that many of the victims trapped in the ship died due to hypothermia. It was later discovered that the crew member responsible for shutting the doors had gone on a break and was asleep. Nor was the first officer on the car deck as the ship set sail, as he was trying to keep to a tight schedule. And the captain was not able to see that the doors were still open. An inquiry into the disaster found that there was a disease of sloppiness throughout the Townsend Torres and Company. It was also noted, however, that ferries had sailed with open doors before, without sinking, but there were other contributing factors here, to do with the pressure created by the ship in the shallow water, the height of the bow doors, and the speed at which the vessel was travelling. But even with all these factors, disaster could still have been averted if the ship had been divided into watertight compartments and not featured an open car deck. This facilitated easy loading and unloading of vehicles, but also meant that the entire car deck was flooded, leading to the ship capsizing when she turned. In October 1987, a coroner's inquest jury returned a verdict of unlawful killing, and many people involved were prosecuted for manslaughter, as was the operating company, P&O European Ferries. And since the accident, there have been design improvements made to this type of ferry, including switches on the bridge displaying the status of the bow doors, watertight ramps fitted to the bow sections, and freeing flaps which let water escape from the car deck in case of flood. This was all too late for the Herald of Free Enterprise, though, which was raised and made one last voyage to India, where she was dismantled in 1988. Galloping Gertie was the nickname given to the first attempt at building a bridge to carry Washington State Route 16 across the Tacoma Narrows in Washington State. It was opened to traffic on the 1st of July 1940 and quickly earned its descriptive moniker for the way it moved in the wind. As is so often the case, the problem was one of funding. Plans for the bridge had kicked off in earnest in 1937 when the Washington State Toll Bridge Authority came into being and took control of $5,000 for a feasibility study into building a suspension bridge. But when the authority applied to the Public Works Administration for $11 million to build a design by local engineer Clark Eldridge, a New York company said they could do it for less. The new design featured 2.5-metre girder supports beneath the roadway instead of the original 7.5-metre ones. This decision was to prove disastrous. And at 11 a.m. on the 7th of November, just 4 months after opening, events showed just how disastrous. A physical phenomenon known as mechanical resonance made the bridge swing violently from side to side before the concrete cracked and the bridge's central span plunged into the narrows below. Amazingly, there was no human loss of life in the incident, although there was one death, a Cocker Spaniel called Tubby, who got trapped in a car when his owner's father, local news photographer Leonard Coatsworth, was forced to flee for his life. Coatsworth later received compensation of $364.40 for his car contents, including poor old Tubby.
Three, two, one.